All right, folks, let's get started. Good afternoon. For those of you who I have not met or who my voice is not unfamiliar, my name is Jennison Asuncion, and since last January, I have been serving as your board chair. I want to welcome all of you to this Fireside Chat. Thank you for joining us. We were actually planning to do this, and the situation was such that Thomas was going to be here on unrelated business, and he was good enough to accommodate an earlier arrival into San Francisco so that we could be here in person and to meet with the community that's joined us here. We have folks on Zoom, and we've got folks here in the room. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of how we're going to go about this, I've got a number of questions to ask both Thomas, who's here, and we also have Jim Dubin, and they'll both have a chance to introduce themselves in a moment. Jim is board chair of Lighthouse Guild, and he's joining us from New York, where it's 3 hours ahead. So we appreciate Jim joining us later on into the evening. But we'll get through some of these initial questions I have. I want to make sure there's plenty of time for community involvement and questions coming in. So we'll do that, and then we'll close up with a couple more questions from me. I'll be watching the clock carefully to make sure we'll be done 5 o'clock or just about 5:15 at the latest is when we're going to finish things up. But to begin things, I'll say that the questions that I have here come from a combination of places. They come from questions that were submitted online. I've spoken to members of the board who have also been speaking to other folks in the community. So the first few questions that I'll be talking to Thomas and Jim about, hopefully are questions that many of us have had. And then we'll get to some of the additional questions that you all have, and then we'll go from there. So without further ado, first of all, hello, Thomas.
Hello.
And hello, Jim.
Oh, hello, Jennison. Nice to be with you.
Thank you so much. So let's get things started. Thomas, the infamous question that most of these conversations always start with is, tell us a little bit about yourself for folks in the audience who don't know who Thomas Panek is.
Yeah, so thanks, Jennison, and thanks for having us. Special shout out to all the interpreters online. I am president and CEO of Lighthouse Guild. I've been there for almost 6 months. The new CEO, I'm very proud to say that the board selected me as the first blind CEO of the organization. So very proud to have the lived experience as a president there. I live in New York with my wife and 4 kids, and they're young adults, 2 in college. My daughter just graduated. She's on her way to medical school, very proud of her. And my youngest is still at home, so it's a busy household. We have 2 dogs in the family. I have a guide dog named 10 right next to me here. And prior to that, I spent the past decade as president and CEO of Guiding Eyes for the Blind in New York. It's a guide dog school. And that was a wonderful experience where I really had a chance to get to know the wider community across the United States and Canada, where we had guide dog users throughout. Getting a guide dog coming to our residential program. We also had a very strong commitment to the deafblind community in our residential program and our home training program. So very, very proud of the work that Guiding Eyes did. I did receive my first guide dog from California here at Guide Dogs for the Blind. I know there's Saffron, the puppy being raised in the audience. Thank you to all the puppy raisers. And that really was when I started my journey, having lost most of my vision by that time when I was at the age of 26. I have deep roots in the Bay Area. I lived in San Francisco as a boy. My father had a construction company. And wherever my father had work, we moved to. So I moved to the Bay Area and had, at that time, just a pet dog. And I would go through the foothills, and I started kind of running with that dog, which kind of got my interest in running. and spent a lot of time here kind of growing up. And then as a young adult, I came back because Sacramento, California, Folsom was where the visually impaired marathon championship was. And I was very pleased and proud to start my running career in the California International Marathon. So I'm a runner, as you can tell, and kind of kept up with that throughout my life. So that's been part of my personal journey. Prior to that, I was at National Industries for the Blind. I was the executive there for 5 years working on business development and modernization of that program to include services for people who are blind. So very, very proud of modernizing that program and the time that I spent there. And at that time, I spent quite a bit of time coming back and forth to the San Francisco Lighthouse. I also, Anita Aaron at the time was the CEO, and I also followed Anita to the World Institute on Disability when the Ed Roberts campus was being built and became volunteer treasurer of the board up at the Ed Roberts campus. I just love to come back and forth every quarter to California. So some deep roots here, as well as New York now, where I live with my wife and family. And that's just a little bit about my story. I have RP. I started to lose my vision very early when I was about 8 years old. I noticed that I couldn't see the stars in the night sky anymore. I received services from a lighthouse. I was diagnosed at a lighthouse. I received O&M services. So I truly understand, as well as adaptive equipment services and access technology services through the States. So I truly understand what a difference in a person's life those services can make. I wish that I had gone to the Crown Jewel, Enchanted Hills, and had that experience, because I did not have that experience, but I know how important that experience could be for people. I was the kid at camp that didn't quite fit in. So it's amazing that you have that here, and I hope that I get a chance to visit it in due time. That's a little bit about myself.
Cool, thanks, Thomas. Jim.
Thanks, Jennison.
You.
First, I want to welcome everyone. Thank you for having us. It's our honor and privilege to be here tonight. Just a short bit about me. I was a lawyer, a partner at Paul Weiss, was there for 42 years. And then when I retired, I was peacefully chairman of Lighthouse Guild, and that was my major occupation until Conair Corporation came along, and I spent 4 years as executive chair at Conair Corporation. Most of you have at least one of our products, either Conair, in your home, and we're proud to be 92% of the country has products in their home. I've been involved with the Lighthouse, or its predecessor, Jewish Guild for the Blind, since 1988. I live in New York with my wife, my 2 children, and my 2 grandchildren. That's in inverse order of importance. I've not as much to do with San Francisco during my early years as a lawyer. I spent a lot of time working for Bank of America at 55 California Street, and used to take the trolley up and down from the hotel in the morning and getting home in the evening. Other than that, I'm I'd say peacefully retired. I do a little consulting work, and my major charitable operation is Lighthouse Guild for the Blind. We're the successor, which I'll probably talk about later, of a merger between the Lighthouse International and Jewish Guild for the Blind. That was done 13 years ago, and we think it's one of our greatest success stories. Jennison, I think that's enough about me. That's really about our organization, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Jim. Now, Thomas, 2 weeks, gosh, I can't believe 2 weekends ago, you and Jim and Maura Sweeney, your COO, made a whirlwind trip, first trip here to San Francisco. They came to this building. You've visited Lighthouse Industries, and Jim and Maura have been up to EHC. You've also obviously read, apparently we've been in the press of late, and you've been privy to that. You've seen all of that. And you've also read some of the comments about us online, some of the great stuff and some of the not so good stuff. Now, with all of that, what was it and what is it about the Lighthouse that got you interested, that had you pick up the phone and reach out to Brandon, what was it, the week of the 28th of August, to start a conversation? Why the Lighthouse and why now?
Yeah, Jennison, I think when I heard about some of the challenges that Lighthouse is facing, I really thought about it, and being new in my position and being in New York and thinking to myself about some of the challenges that you're facing, I looked back on the legacy of this organization over 100 years of serving our community. And I felt like I really needed to reach out and extend a hand to see if there was anything at all that I could do to help. Organizations do go through changes, they go through challenges, and oftentimes the feedback that we hear is difficult to hear. But I've always been taught that feedback is a gift. And as hard as it may be to listen, that's the most important thing we can do as leaders. And so I really called to listen, to understand, what can I do to help? Is there anything at all that I can do? I've, as I mentioned earlier, benefited from services of Lighthouse. I have been here before at different times, various times. I know the strength of this organization and its people. I have friends in the community that it serves. And I felt like I was in a position in life, being president and CEO of Lighthouse Guild, an organization that is right now has gone through several, as Jim will mention, iterations and transformations, but right now is very strong and stable. And so I felt like we talk in the community a lot about helping each other and working in collaboratively and reaching out when we all need to ask for help. And I felt like it was a moment where I could really reach out my hand and say, I'm here. Is there anything at all that I can do to help?
Jim, anything on your end to add?
Just to reiterate, when Thomas and I first talked about it, it was the concept of we have the same community. How do we help? Okay, we are stable. We have been since our merger. And the thought was, if we can be of any help at all, we serve the same community. We try to serve the same community. We have the same ideals and hopes. And so if we can help, as Thomas said, let us try. When we first called, you and Brandon were extremely receptive to say, let's talk. And we believe that it's something perhaps we can help, and we should find out, since our missions are really the same. The words are a little different, but the meaning is not different at all. And that's why we're sitting here tonight.
Jim, I'll stay with you if I could. As chair of the board, I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about your board, a little bit about what kind of consumer representation is on the board, and what other ways are there for the community to provide input to Lighthouse Guild?
Sure. We have a 17-person board. We have 3 blind and visually impaired members, including Thomas. I will take credit for finding Thomas as our first blind CEO. We had a search committee, but Thomas, to say whether he was blind or not, he was the perfect person. He was clearly our first choice, and being blind made that even more important. But as I said, our board has 3 blind and visually impaired members. We then have an advisory board, which doesn't have the same financial obligations, but has the same representation. We have 19 people on the advisory board. 8 of them are blind or visually impaired, and a lot have relations to the community. Even more, we have a visionary committee, which is mostly younger people, not children, but in their 20s, 30s, and early 40s. We have 17 people on that. 50% are blind or visually impaired. There are an awful lot of community people on that board. And other than through our staff and our clients, who we get an enormous amount, we encourage them to talk to us all the time about both the good things in our program and our bad. But the visionary committee adds a lot, and there's a straight line from the visionary committee to the board. The chairman of the visionary committee sits in our board meetings also. And I'm not sure I mentioned the chairman of the visionary committee is blind. So between those three and just a direct interaction with our clients is how we primarily get our feedback.
That's great. Thanks. Staying with you still, Jim. When you think about this potential partnership that we might enter into, what in your view are the strengths that we here at the Lighthouse would bring to the partnership that would be most beneficial?
Well, I'll say one that changed from my trip out there, and that was the camp. I was amazed when we went out there, when Diana and so Sharon and then Marie and I went out there. It's an amazing facility, and as I learned more, when JD told me about his son and what the camp did to that, I really think that's something we were talking, Thomas and I, about what could we say if to our donors or to some of our supporters, we said, help us support and send some of our children out for a week at the camp. I mean, the stories about it, as well as the physical plant, were just amazing. The same way with Sirkin Center. That's something we had many, not the center, but blind work many years ago. Both the Lighthouse and the Guild stopped way before I got involved, which was in '88. And yet I listened to Brandon and the success that program has. And then just in spending the 2 days, we do a lot of other things that are equal, and I'm sure we do some better and you do some better. And I'm always thinking that how do we become better? How do we learn? And I think we have a lot to learn from you and your team.
Thomas, I'm going to flip the question a little bit and ask you, what is the thing or things that you see the Lighthouse Guild could bring to a potential partnership that would be beneficial?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think first and foremost, we have a really strong community presence through our telehealth program. It has more than 1,000 people actively engaged in community-based discussions that are facilitated. So we have parents that have blind children, we have young adults, we have groups that have common interests. And I think that's something that we really feel very proud of in our organization. We also have a very strong practice. It's on our 3rd floor, which is a technology center. And I know that you all are in that space as well, but I love technology innovation. It's something we're really proud of and continue to innovate around potential technologies around navigation and other access technologies. I'm very proud of that. We probably have more in common with that than differences, but we're very proud of that. And also, we do focus on the individual. So we do have a program where we have optometrists on staff, as well as other staff that can assist with low vision aids. And I think our behavioral health center is really important nowadays. Having social workers and therapists on staff to help people and their families as perhaps they adapt to vision loss is something that we offer. We're very proud to offer that. And also there's Guild Care. So that's a program where I love to go down to the 4th floor and visit Guild Care, because that's a program where we keep people in their homes, enable them to stay in their homes and be able to come to us during the daytime for activities. Oftentimes it's older adults who would otherwise perhaps go to a long-term care facility, but their families really want to keep them in the community. So we're really proud of that program. And that's an activity-based program that we offer. The first 2 floors are our school, where it's an integrated school where our teachers of the visually impaired go down. It just started up again for the year, and it's lovely to see the kids coming in and out of the building from a school perspective. So there's just so much activity. And I think, the bottom line is we have more in common than we have differences. We're just doing it on different coasts. But some of those programs are ones that I believe, particularly in our low vision clinic area, where we have a very strong presence in our low vision clinic area, where we could potentially partner together.
Sticking with you, Thomas, for some folks who may have already done some initial poking around of your website or other research, some concern has been raised about the perception that Lighthouse Guild subscribes or prescribes to a medical model of service delivery. and just a medical model approach or philosophy. Can you comment about that?
Yeah, I think the perception is that these words, this medical model, really, if we look back at what medical model is, it means that you are essentially putting the doctor ahead of the needs of recognizing that the person's needs may not necessarily come from the medical approach. And so, I'm there every day. I can tell you that it's not something that I see as part of our culture. Each individual that comes, we ask the person what their goals are. It's driven and led by the individual and what their goals are. Perhaps it's workforce development, perhaps it's access technology training, perhaps it's orientation and mobility, perhaps it's career mentoring or coaching. But because we have also the ability, for example, in Guild Care to provide nursing care to adult, perhaps we have some octogenarians who need some assistance during the day, and that nursing care is then considered medical model. I would consider that part of the services that we offer to serve the whole person from the time that they come to Lighthouse, perhaps as a child throughout their lifetime. I also step back and just think of this in a very personal way. I have a daughter who worked really, really hard ever since kindergarten, and she is entering medical school, as I mentioned, to be an ophthalmologist. And I think to myself, as a future budding ophthalmologist, would I say that she is a person that is going to ascribe to the medical model? And I think to myself, there's no way Madeline would ever, having a dad who's blind, think about the fact that I can't accomplish something or I can't be what she, deserves as my daughter because she happens to be going into the medical field. So I think perhaps that perception may be a dated one, one from the past. It certainly, as CEO and with my lived experience, is not a culture that I've seen or something that I would support. That said, I think it's incredibly important that we do offer the services that our community needs. And in some cases, if that services are offered by an orientation and mobility specialist or a teacher of the visually impaired or an optometrist, I don't call it medical model. I call it, what are the needs of our community and how can we meet those as an organization?
Great. Before we open things up to the folks in the room and folks on Zoom, I wanted to give each of you an opportunity to just address our audience of students, supporters, and donors. So let me start with you, Jim, if you had anything before we turn things over. Anything further you want to add?
I think Thomas just said it. What is important to us is the person and what that person's goals are. How do we help that person achieve their goals? I've been at Lighthouse for, I don't know, more years than I'm going to admit, and I've never worried about the medical model before. It's always been the person. What can we do to help that person achieve his or her goals? And that's what I've strived for since, as I said, since 1988. And I think that's what's important for everybody to understand. You call it the medical model, you call it the rehab model. It's really, how do we help someone achieve their goals and live a happy and proper life?
Thomas, anything you wanted to?
Well, to the community, I've read some of the comments and I've read some of the concerns, and I think the comments and concerns are valid. You have a wonderful organization here that deserves our support, our best thinking. Organizations change over time and they continue to change to reflect the communities they serve. And so I know I've had a chance to get to know Jennison as a leader, as a thought leader. I know you're laser focused on making sure this organization continues to serve the community. I've had a chance to talk to Tony about the camp. I know how incredibly important that is. I know how the services here, we need to do better. Let's say that we all need to do better, but not just at this moment in time. We need to always evolve and change with the needs of the individuals and the communities that we're really here to serve. So right now we're in a moment where I believe it's really important to listen to each other, to be respectful, to have those conversations. and to understand what the path forward looks like, really focusing, as Jim said, on the community and what the community's needs are. So I would close by saying, this is a wonderful discussion, a wonderful opportunity. I've read the strategic plan. I've read the dreams of this organization from the board's perspective. A lot of thought's been given to it. I know you have an executive committee that's deeply committed to making sure that this organization remains sustainable and continues to offer services, but also innovate services it provides. I think you have all the elements of a successful ongoing operation. I think together, as we explore this partnership, as Jim said, I think we could be better and stronger together.
Great, thanks, Thomas. All right, let's open it up to questions. Before we get going, for those of you who join our board meetings, you know, probably part of what my spiel that I'm going to give. First of all, though, I will say let's keep the questions focused on our guests, Thomas and Jim, and the potential partnership from their perspective. For questions, you know, that you might have that are more specifically for us here at the Lighthouse, we're going to have another one of these sessions in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. We'll have plenty of opportunity to ask questions of leadership and of the board here on that front. So stand by and stay tuned for more email on that front, okay? Let's also, as usual, just be respectful of each other and of the space that we're in. And again, as I say at our board meetings, we will not be addressing any staff or personnel issues. So outside of that, we've got folks here, we've got mic runners. I'm gonna be rotating between taking questions from in-room and on Zoom. So for those of you on Zoom, I know Maritza is gonna be watching carefully and maybe a couple of others. If you could raise your hand, that'll be the best way to get attention to ask a question. And let's stick to one question per person before we, let's go with one round of that before asking second questions. And then for the benefit of Thomas, Jim, and frankly for myself, before you give your question, if you could just say your first name and what your affiliation is with the Lighthouse, whether you're a student, whether you're staff, supporter, donor, and whatnot. Okay, so let's start in the room. Obviously, asking me to look for people is going to be a
you can raise your hand if you have.
But raise your hand, please, and we've got the mic runners who will attend to that. So we'll take a first question from in the room. Any questions?
I need to stand. My name is Gilda. I came to the Lighthouse several years ago after losing vision through macular degeneration. I have benefited greatly from some of the programs, technology, access technology, cane training, and other assisted living techniques. My question is, I'd like to hear more about your workforce development program.
It's Gilda, correct? Yeah, nice to meet you, Gilda. I'm Thomas. Workforce development is incredibly important to me. And so we have a variety of programs that we offer in workforce training. So it could start with training around access technology. It also could include placement, but one of the programs I'm really, really proud of is called Tech Pals. So I'm going to tell you about that. How does that sound? Tech Pals is a program that prepares people for workforce readiness by having a mentee and a mentor. And the mentee in this case is usually an older adult who's learning how to use technology. And the mentor is the young adult who's transitioning into a career or a workforce. And we put the two people together, we pair them. We just had a Tech Pals graduation. And the individuals get together, and it's teaching, it's instruction with each other. It's a paid program. The program enables the person, for example, to teach somebody for the first time how to text or use the phone. Perhaps it's somebody who's an older adult and a grandparent who wants to text their children for the first time. Or perhaps it's somebody who is wanting to order an Uber. And, I have 4 teenagers at home. They teach me a lot about using technology every day. Sometimes it's hard to keep them off of it, but leveraging Tech Pals in order to, as a workforce development tool has been incredible. And then we have companies out there that are helping us with mock interviews so that we prepare the Tech Pal, that individual, to prepare for the workforce and to ultimately be placed in companies. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about technology, but that is an entry point for us. So that's a program we're very proud of. That's one program. Another program that we're piloting is one of our Tech Pals had gotten an associate's degree in cybersecurity. Now that's a big need now with all the junk email we get and all the phishing emails. Having a career in cybersecurity is an excellent opportunity for somebody. And so we have started a cybersecurity training program with partners, which is actually paid for by the Commission for the Blind New York State, so that we can inevitably place that person in a career path in cybersecurity. So that's another example of a workforce development initiative. I could go on for the rest of the time, but I just want to give you an example of some of the type of workforce development initiatives that not only provide people with experience, but paid experience and placement experience. So thank you for the question.
Thanks, Thomas. Let's take a question from Zoom.
Yeah, the first one up is A. Louie, which I think might be Tony Lewis. Just so remember, you are on mute, so you need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Thomas, I just want to thank you so much. Just speaking in terms of you're supporting the Uber rally. I've gotten my dog from a different school, and your school was the first one to sign on and join us in supporting blind folks with guide dogs at that rally. And from day one, you have earned a lot of respect in the community just from that thing. So I just wanted to let you know that we really appreciated that. And that really showed who you are. And just in terms of what you said today, I think that really resonates in terms of all of us just getting to know you better and just to see who you are. And it's exciting that you're here. My question is this, with the potential merger, between Lighthouse and Lighthouse San Francisco and New York, as our board president has indicated, there's been, some messiness in the news, and everything has been put on hold on this end in terms of cleaning up some of the mess. And I was just wondering, taking on the Lighthouse, are you a little concerned that steps still aren't going forward to work through that process of getting things cleaned up before you merge or become a partner, or whatever the relationship will ultimately be, that work isn't continuing to get things straightened out?
Thomas, let me take that. Tony, I think concerned is not the right word. Do we want to learn about it? Do we want to be able to help? What we've learned just in the weekend I was there is the impressive staff and leadership that you have. Yes, there have been issues, and we understand them, and we understand that some of the potential fixes have been put on hold. We had a very successful merger in the past between Lighthouse and Jewish Guild for the Blind. We know what to look for. Are we concerned? No. Are we interested in learning, and can we help? Yes. But does it say stop and don't worry about it? Of course not. But is it something that says you can't go forward? Not at all. We believe that once we know the facts and have talked to your leadership, we believe that we'll be able to find the right way forward. But it's still early in the transaction. So the answer is we're not worried about it, but we will look closely.
You want to add anything else, Thomas?
I think looking back at Lighthouse Guild, I just completed our annual report, and there's really no distinction from Lighthouse Guild, whether you were at the Lighthouse or the Guild side. The staff integrated incredibly well. I'd have to ask somebody which organization they were with. as I walk the halls to really know. And I think it's a testament to organizations changing and growing and continuing to evolve together. I give Jim a lot of credit for leading that effort with his board, and the two organizations are very strong. So I'm sure that at that time there were challenges, unique challenges to Lighthouse, unique challenges to Guild, and there are unique challenges here. But I think, it's all about how you handle those challenges. I like to say it's not the what, it's the how. It is the how this time. It's how we do it, how we look at it. The what, there's always challenges in organizations. So it's just how we do it, how we make sure to put the community first, and how we continue to serve everyone. So Tony, just building on Jim's answer, I'm not overly concerned. In terms of putting things on pause, I think bad decisions can be made in haste. Having a second to step back and look at decision more globally is always the best decision made. They say sleep on a decision. So in a lot of ways, taking a pause and letting things settle a little bit and to discuss what the challenges are, a better decision will probably be made. As Jim said, it's early stages and we don't know what the outcome of exploring a partnership will be. But I certainly think the decisions I've made in life have always not been made quickly. They've taken time.
Thanks, Tony. Another question in the room.
There's a theme of Tonys.
Oh, another Tony.
Good Tony time. Hi, everyone. Tony Fletcher, Senior Director, Alumni Relations. This one is both for you, Jim, and for you, Thomas. You mentioned earlier, the Lighthouse, we put our 5-year strategic plan out there to the world. They can read about it. I was just wondering if the Lighthouse Guild, I couldn't find a strategic plan for the Lighthouse Guild. I'm wondering when's the last time Lighthouse Guild had a 5-year strategic plan, or I know for Thomas, you're so new to it. So I'm sure they probably held off wanting to do one until you're more established, but can you share with us maybe your timeline and what your strategies are as an organization?
Tony, it's an interesting question and a very factual one. Our 5-year plan ran out a year ago. And when our previous CEO decided that he was going to retire in his young age of, let's just call him in the 70s, we decided that we would not start a new strategic planning committee until we had our new CEO, and because that's the person that's going to lead us into the next generation. During the last one, which was probably 6 or 7 years ago when we started working on it, we actually hired McKinsey. We spent almost a year with McKinsey looking at every issue of our operation and helping us. They made a bunch of proposals. We accepted probably 75% of them into a strategic plan. As I said, it did expire a year ago, but we were waiting for our new CEO before starting a new committee. That's one of the things that will be happening very short. Once Thomas, has a couple of more months under his feet before we say, now you got to do this.
Tony, you just put me on the line for some homework here. Thanks a lot, Tony. I did read the strategic plan of Lighthouse, and it's a really solid plan. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. Anti-ableist, lived experience leadership, having the ability to expand your services. There's a lot of really good stuff in that plan. And, if Tony will allow me, if my board chair can cover his ears for a second, maybe I'll steal some of that for hours.
What did you say? I didn't hear you, Thomas.
Maritza, any takers online?
Yeah, we have Alyssa C. Alyssa, you are up and muted currently.
Hi, my name is Alyssa, and I am a retired teacher of the blind from the California School for the Blind. And many a year ago, I had rehab services from the Jewish Guild for the Blind. I'm talking about the early 80s. I'm currently a volunteer at the Lighthouse. And my question is, will there be an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and is there going to be input from the community? And will the community be involved in deciding to partner, with Lighthouse International, or is this something that's strictly between the two boards? Thank you.
Jennison, do you want to?
I will Yeah, I will quickly answer this, and then just a reminder to everyone that questions such as the one Alyssa asked, which is a totally fair question, we will have plenty of opportunity to discuss this both at a similar fireside chat session with Lighthouse leadership and board leadership, as well as at our upcoming board meeting. But at a high level, I will say there will absolutely be community involvement. And there is also a board and community committee that's already been struck that is going to be involved in this entire due diligence and exploration process.
And just a word, if I may, on our side, as I mentioned earlier, our advisory committee and our visionary committee will be involved in discussions with our board. It will not just be the board members alone.
So Alyssa, more to come. Thank you. Any another question from in the room?
Hello, my name is Nicole. I am a volunteer and I love the Lighthouse. My question is about the littles, the young ones, the youth, and things like that. What do you foresee in the future of like integrating programs that you're already running or programs that you've done that are successful? You already mentioned Tech Pals. That was really, really awesome. So what are some other programs that you're thinking now that you've experienced what kind of the Lighthouse has with Enchanted Hills and stuff like that?
No, that's a great question. You know, my family volunteers in Lighthouse to be part of the pre-K programs over the years as my kids were growing up. You know, it's an incredible, I've heard about Little Learners. It's an incredibly impactful time, both for the parents and the child. I think it's incredibly important as well. I think this is an area where we could potentially learn from you all as to what you're currently doing in that program and how we could potentially even emulate it for our parents. We do have groups, for example, telesupport groups of parents of children who are blind, and so that's another program that we could potentially share with you all to kind of grow. This is perhaps the one thing I think we have as human beings as an obligation to do more. To support. I know that in the past there's been some challenges of funding this type of program across the nation. I've been engaged in dialogue with other CEOs across organizations, and there's been some real stars out there in this area. I think that 0 to 3 age is incredibly critical, whether you're blind or not. And I think that's something that the entire country grapples with, is to provide more services in that age group. I will tell you that it's something I'm deeply committed to doing. But I don't have all the answers right now.
Question from the virtual world.
Yeah, we have Roberto G. Roberto, you are on.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. My question is
And Roberto,
around,
if you could just Roberto, if you could just mention are you a student? What's your affiliation to the Lighthouse?
well, I'm a consumer actually. My first awareness of the Lighthouse actually was through Enchanted Hills when I was a student at CSB when it was in Berkeley many years ago. I don't even think I knew what the Lighthouse was about. So my first introduction was through Enchanted Hills. So I have
Wonderful.
many
Thank you.
fond memories of that. So nevertheless, my question, I think, stems from, I think I and others were under the impression from the comments made earlier that there was a strategic plan already in play, or, you know, some MOU. I'm just wondering what is out there that that we as non-board members, you know, can read. You know, can something be set up like on your website so we can sort of follow along as things are being developed? I think in particular what I and other concerned, you know, consumers and employees and donors are really concerned with after, you know, kind of following the troubles that have been documented in the news is just around the gaps in leadership, and especially to the issues around the Lighthouse's fiscal situation. So just wondering if, specifically again, what is available that we can actually read, and how can we continue to follow this along kind of in real time?
Right now we're in the early stages of exploring a potential partnership. And by the way, I keep hearing about this camp. I have to go visit it. This is so important. And it's, we don't have anything formal right now. That's the purpose of the discussion here is, Jennison having us be able to speak to the community. This is that first step of that process. And, engaging and including you and your thoughts is incredibly important. But right now it's too early in the process to put anything out there in writing. I'm certain, and I can't speak for the two board chairs, so I'll let them speak for themselves, that this will be an inclusive process as we move forward. Perhaps Jim can mention how it was handled at Lighthouse Guild in the past, and Jennison, I'll turn it over to you as well.
You want me to, Jennison, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, please. Yeah, no, you go first.
When we had our one merger, which was in 2012, there was talk between both the boards and the subcommittees at Lighthouse International and at the Jewish Guild for the Blind. And then I'm trying to go back and remember how much was publicly put out. The websites were not as popular as they were today, but there were discussions with the community as we went along. It was quite public that the discussions were going on, and there was input up and down the chain. Lighthouse had its board and its subcommittees, as did Jewish Guild for the Blind, and most of the interaction was two ways between those committees and the two boards. The community being represented by the various committees, and by, in many cases, our clients also, who were not shy about expressing their opinions.
Right. If there's one thing we've learned over the last 6 to 8 months is how important it is to communicate out to the community. So whether it's through more forums like this, and not wanting to put Jim and Thomas on the spot at all, but I'm inviting you to join us again, maybe in another 7 weeks or so, maybe once we're further down in our due diligence process and we know more. To your point, Thomas, we're just getting started now, but to share more information and to get more questions answered. Between that, getting more stuff out via email as we have it, publishing more of the frequently asked questions, our board meetings, which we will have one coming up in October and another one in December. We will certainly be communicating out. As I alluded to, there is also a board and a community level committee that will be participating in the due diligence as well. And again, we know our Lighthouse community in terms of level of engagement that people's want to be involved, and we will absolutely find different ways for that to happen for sure. This isn't something that's going to be conducted. I mean, obviously the day-to-day due diligence pieces are stuff that will have to get done, and we're going to be doing that. But in terms of making sure you all know that this is your Lighthouse, so everything we can do to make sure you're involved and engaged, we are going to do.
And I'll accept on our behalf whenever you want us. Thomas and I will be available.
Thank you. And we'll look forward to having you join us in person, Jim.
Next time I will be there. I couldn't be there this time, but hopefully next time I will be.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, Roberto. Another question in the room?
Sorry, I have Robert and then you're next.
This is Robert Alminana. I lead the rehabilitation services here at the Lighthouse. So looking to this potential partnership, I'm curious, what were the motivations for Lighthouse International and the Jewish Guild for the Blind to merge a few years ago? And what do you think were the reasons why this partnership then was so successful?
It was, I guess the reasons behind it, there was a leadership change at Lighthouse Guild. There had been discussions going on and off for many years. We both provided not exactly the same services, but essentially the same services, clearly to the same community. We both did it a little differently, but the goals were the same. After there was a leadership change at Lighthouse International, the two executive directors were talking. They decided to introduce Joe Ripp, who was chairman at the time, and I was chairman of Jewish Guild for the Blind at the time. We sat down, and over the next 2 or 3 hours, turned out we really had very similar hopes and goals for our organizations in mind. And the question was, can we do it more efficiently and better serve the community together? And we spent literally, I met Joe for the first time in June, and in December we had an MOU, and we merged the next year. Since then, as I think Thomas mentioned earlier, you don't know who's comes from which organization. We merged our boards. We've been really blind, if you will, excuse the language, to who came from where. And it's been a very successful merger. I think that our services to the community have improved. We each learned from each other. And that's what we hope here. Can we help? Can we be of assistance? As Thomas said, we have things to learn from you, as I think you have things to learn from us. And ultimately, it means that if we do that and 1 and 1 equals 3, we're serving the community much better. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, I do. Roberto, is it?
No, it was Robert.
Oh, it was Robert. Okay. You and I sat together not so long ago, right? We worked together actually on a panel in Arizona on the future dreams of how programs would work. So it's great to see you here. And you think about that, putting your thoughts forward on how the dream state was the question that our panel was asked about what's the dream state? And we put a lot of good ideas forward about what the dream state is. And yet nobody's able to achieve that dream state because we're all doing it in our own communities differently instead of collectively. So I hope that you'll be part of the ongoing discussion about how we can do things better together.
Great. And just a quick time check. We have about 7 minutes for questions from the community. So let's go to another question online. Maritza.
We have Alicia Connor. Alicia, you're up.
Hello, thank you. I'm honored to be here. So I'm a student of the Lighthouse. I have volunteered as well. And I just wanted to ask, I think that I want to share my opinion that I think collaboration just in this moment in time with all of the variables that all of us experience in general, collaboration is how we humans will thrive. And it sounds like from another question here that, and I joined just after 4 o'clock or whatever, after the beginning of this meeting. So I might have missed it, but maybe share a bit about the heartbeat of the Lighthouse in San Francisco in terms of like the health. Because my understanding is, just to clarify, so everybody here, because we have over 100 people here, my understanding is that this partnership or potential partnership, I understand you're in the beginning stages of figuring this out, sorting it out, is that, and the postponement of finding a CEO for the Lighthouse in San Francisco is to really be intentional about this chapter and like do the homework now And so I think it would be helpful for some people here to hear more about the heartbeat of the Lighthouse in San Francisco, meaning I guess the wellness. Like there's a sense of like I read a newspaper article or in the media about how you know, the Lighthouse was probably going to close its doors, and so that's what I mean about the heartbeat of the Lighthouse in San Francisco. And this isn't for me necessarily; it's just kind of like for everyone to be on the same page. And I've had friends reach out to me in concern because they read these articles online, and I would recommend asking for these sources to update their information. So that was one part of my question, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. But I also wanted to ask a little bit about, is there anything in the strategic plan of either organization about wellness programs? Because what I did do when I volunteered at the Lighthouse in 2018 was my background is as a dietitian and chef, so I did these like 15-minute nutrition lightning consults, which was super helpful. And so this is just from a little bit of context of who I am. I know that was a lot, but do the best you can. I trust that you will.
Thank you, Alicia. One of the things I'd mentioned also at the beginning, so this is Jennison speaking, is that we're going to focus this conversation here today on
the partnership,
the potential partnership, and the fact that we have the advantage of having Thomas, who's here from visiting from New York, and Jim in New York, to focus those questions for them. In terms of your question about the heartbeat, I invite you to join us at our October 2nd board meeting, where we'll definitely have some more to say there. I would also really encourage folks to check out the frequently asked questions that have been posted up on the Lighthouse San Francisco website for just a sense of some of the, those are questions that have been frequently coming up from the community in terms of where we are and all that kind of good stuff. So what I want to do though is make sure that we get more questions specifically for Jim and Thomas, and you can certainly, you know, we've taken note of your question here, but what I would like to do is really recommend for everyone who has that type of interest to definitely check out the frequently asked questions, and also if we don't get to your question here, because we are running out of time, if Maritza, if I could ask you to drop the link into the chat,
it's already
where people
there.
can ask some more questions, and we will address those specific to Lighthouse San Francisco at a different time.
So the link to submit additional questions and the frequently asked questions link is in the chat, as well as the sign up form for the public meeting coming up.
So thank you, Alicia, for your understanding. Let's take another question. Yeah. We'll take another question from in the room.
Yes. Good afternoon or good evening. This is Susan Kitazawa.
Hi, Susan.
And I am a blind participant at the Lighthouse. I have also been a longtime volunteer with the Lighthouse, and I have also been, until very recently, a very steadfast donor to the Lighthouse. And I noticed that when there was Jennison at some point made the comment that people at the Lighthouse get it, that communication needs more attention, communication with the broader community. And I would like to add to that it's really important that the communication be two-way, that it's not just the Lighthouse telling us things at meetings or sending out emails, as Jennison mentioned, more emails, but that it be a two-way thing. I have been on several iterations of Lighthouse advisory committees since way back, more than 15 years ago. And most of them have fallen apart, or we have meetings and people who are blind come to the meetings, but the staff person forgot to put it in their schedule. This was going way back. And for it to be good two-way communication, it's really important that people actually believe that the community input matters. So what my question, and oh, also I wanted to just comment, as people know, there have been 2 rallies, 2 major newspaper articles, radio coverage, TV coverage about the problems at the Lighthouse. And I think partly why that was all out there publicly instead of internally was because people who are blind in the community here didn't feel we had a voice within the organization, and perhaps that can change going forward. And I'd like to hear from Thomas and also the board gentleman, if you'd like to comment on how you might be able to support the Lighthouse in San Francisco to work on that piece of things, either if there's a partnership or even if they decide not to do the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Susan. And I think it's incredibly important. Communication by definition is two-way. It's supposed to be back and forth, not asynchronous. So I first of all, thank you for donating to the Lighthouse and being a volunteer. We rely on our volunteers as well. One of my team members, Cheryl, leads our volunteer programs, and every day I thank the volunteers for what they do, because without our volunteers, we couldn't be and couldn't do what we offer. So thank you for that as well. We do have a very active visionary committee and advisory board that informs me. I meet with regularly to learn about what is working, what needs improvement, and then what ideas they have. And I think that's incredibly important to stay active and relevant in the communication. You know, I came out here today specifically to meet with you, the community. This is my, second visit to this location. And Jennison, I know he's laser focused on getting this feedback from the community. So I give Jennison a lot of credit for offering us the ability to start out this way. We're at the very beginning stages, and here we are listening. I think we need to, as Jim said, continue to make that commitment to listen. And you have my word, my bond, that I will continue to listen to the community to make sure that as our due diligence and partnership evolves, that we'll continue to listen and to communicate in the best way that we know.
Let me just add, part of our due diligence is listening, okay? And maybe one of the most important parts is listening. If any partnership is going to work, it's got to be something that's accepted by and acceptable to the community. So there's no worry, at least on my side, that there will be plenty of two-way streets in going forward if we decide to go forward.
Well said, Jim.
We have time for, we're at the 5 o'clock point, and just so you all know, Thomas does have a dinner to get to in Menlo Park, and if anyone knows traffic in the Bay Area, we got to make sure he gets to his dinner. But let's do this. Let's take one more question online and then one more question in person. And then I have one more final question for Thomas, and then we'll call it a day. So Maritza, can you queue up one more question from the Zoom?
Yeah, we got Ken Rossi. Ken Rossi, you're up.
Well, my name is Ken Rossi. I'm a student at Lighthouse. I started when I first went to Enchanted Hills in '74. I just wanted to say I'm grateful for everything the Lighthouse has done, and I'm very grateful for Enchanted Hills, and I hope we can keep it going. That's it. Thank you very much.
Let me just say, as I don't know, Ken, if you heard it in the beginning, I spent a couple hours the first day I was there at Enchanted Hills, and I'm not quite sure the right word as to how impressed I was. And listening to everybody tell me about the experiences there, it really is a major program and a major advantage of Lighthouse San Francisco.
Great. And one more question from in the room?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Mike Cole. I have a long history with this organization, but I want to ask a question about the New York Lighthouse. Growing up, I always heard the New York Lighthouse was a colossus. It was huge. Everything went through there. It was the organization. And what I thought of the Jewish Guild was that they were a Braille publisher, but I figured they probably did more than that. I just, sitting out here, I just never got a chance to know. Now you guys have been together for a while. I was on our Lighthouse board for a long time. We merged with a local agency in town. It was a board thing, and then it was a lawyer thing. And anyway, what are the style differences between your organizations? I mean, you came together. It seems like it's worked, and you're thriving. This is great. I really have a bunch of questions, but I'll stop there. I'm dying to know what your relationship with government funding and your DOR, but that's for another time. Thank you.
Well, let me back up. The Jewish Guild for the Blind was not a Braille publisher. It was a full service BVI organization that dealt with rehab. We ran an HMO for many, many years until the government decided that they could do things better and could change the rules on us. We both, as I said earlier, I don't know if you heard me, we had common visions and a lot of common programs when we decided in 2012 that we could do those more efficiently and serve the community better as one organization. We were probably, I don't know, 80% of the same services, slightly different manner, but really the same rehab services. We maybe did a little bit more with the medical side. One of our strategic plans was that we were too medical. We gave too many non-blind related services. And when we started looking at our funding and our finances, we cut back a little to what we believe are the appropriate services to provide now. But both organizations were quite active. Lighthouse was a little better publicly known. We perhaps were a little better medically known, and both came together, and it's been a really trouble-free journey for the last 13 years. And as Thomas said earlier, no one really thinks about or even remembers who was where. I was an M&A lawyer for 40 years, and this was probably one of the most successful mergers I've ever seen. I hope that answers your questions, at least the first one.
All right, Thomas, we're almost done here.
Sure, Jennison.
One final question is again, you're getting to know the community and such. What are your initial impressions in terms of similarities and differences between the quote unquote blind community here and the community back in the Big Apple?
Yeah, it's a great question. I thought you were going to ask me what time I got up this morning. That was an easy one.
We were texting about that, weren't we?
You were early. I have friends in both the Bay Area as well as in New York, and I think that there's a lot in common. Our needs, our desires, things that we want to accomplish. I think we have a lot of similarities between our communities. I also recognize that there are unique needs of the deafblind community that you serve. I have friends in the deafblind community. I've really worked very closely with the deafblind community over the past 10 years, so I think that's unique. We don't serve deafblind community where we are currently, so that's a difference, I think, that makes unique. But the other thing I think that's quite unique is the strength of advocacy that this community here in San Francisco has. You often lead the way in advocating. Think about the rideshare that was mentioned earlier by Tony. That happened here in California. And I got to tell you a very brief story. I was traveling on my commute, and it was a rainy day, and I take the train with my guide dog 10, and an Uber showed up. And on my phone, I use access technology on the phone, and I was going to be late to work if I didn't catch that Uber. I had about 10 minutes, and I had a staff meeting. And someone next to me said that Uber canceled on me, That was it. They were gone. Well, right away I received, and I was talking about this, right away I received a notification saying, did your Uber get canceled? Because you have a service animal. And then I got a call, and the call said, we're going to begin an investigation about that Uber cancellation. I thought, that is a direct result of the advocacy of this community helping me in New York. That would not have happened if that rideshare rally hadn't taken place with this community here. And that impacted me because it made a difference. And I have less rideshare denials now because of that. So I think there's something very special about the way that this community advocates on behalf of people who are blind or visually impaired that impacts everybody. That said, the fact that I have a rideshare denial is the same. Our challenges are the same. I hope that answers your question, Jennison.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Jim, I want to first of all thank you, as it is 3 hours later in New York. So we appreciate you joining us for this first conversation, first of many to come, I trust. Thomas, thank you for changing your travel plans to come in early so that you can.
I'm shaking for both me and Jim, by the way. So.
Oh, good handshake there. But thank you very much. Thank you to the folks online for joining us. Thanks for the folks here in the room for joining us. Again, I know we didn't get to all your questions. There's a form that's in the Zoom and that you all have from your email that you all got. Keep those questions coming. As Thomas rightly put, and as Susan put here in the audience, communication is a two-way street. We're getting better at it. And we are just looking forward to starting this journey, this exploration of what possibly could happen. So thank you all for your interest, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.